Thank you for joining us for today's message by Ryan Barrow titled, Who is the Faithful Steward?, which is already in process.
Then tragedy struck again. Continuing verse 5. And Melona and Chilion died also, both of them. And the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. Naomi had now lost her husband, her 2 sons, and only left now are her two daughters-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth. But imagine these 3 ladies, not blood related, indirect relatives, if that makes sense, living together, struggling as individuals as they all collectively go through this grieving process. And then in verse 8, it reads, And Naomi also said unto her daughters, her 2 daughters-in-law, Go return to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. So Naomi acknowledges that her daughters-in-laws were good to her. They were good to her children, her 2 boys. And not on the screen, she also acknowledges that she is now too old, probably, to have a new husband as well, and to provide these 2 ladies with their own husbands following the death of the 2 boys. But this gesture that Naomi gave to say to them, the Lord has dealt kindly with you. You can go back home to your mother's house. Give me permission to return back to their maternal mothers is the first clue of the question of the hour, who is the faithful servant? And that clue is gratitude. She was thankful for what they have done on her behalf, how she looked after again the 2 boys and herself as well. There was an attitude of gratitude. So these are the clues as you go through one by one. But the response of Ruth to Naomi's gratitude provides now a second clue to who is this faithful steward. Loyalty is our next clue. And loyalty is defined as the quality or state of being loyal. But what does the word loyal mean? Faithful to a cause, an ideal, custom, institution, or product. Let's see what Ruth said to Naomi's request in verse 16 of Ruth chapter 1. The Bible continues. And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go. And whence thou lodgest, I will lodge. And thy people shall be my people. Ruth was willing to give up her immediate family, her homeland, even herself, to be near to Naomi. But that was not the clue. That was one of the clues to our question today. Who again is the what? Who is the faithful steward? Clue number 1, there's gratitude. Clue number 2, there's loyalty. But let's remember again how we got here with Naomi and Ruth. Remember again, the Moabites, the land was kind of built off Moab, this incestuous relationship, and there was idol worship in there. And Orpah did take the offer to return back to her mother, but here's what happens next. Let's now go to Ruth chapter 1, verse 14 and verse 15. And the Bible continues. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her and said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. So Naomi acknowledges that she knew that her daughters-in-law may have been engaged or surrounded by idol worship in their homeland. But even then, out of love, she provided Ruth the opportunity to make a choice, a decision. Go back to the homeland to serve the idol gods, to be back with her people. And Ruth had that choice to make. And this choice that Ruth made gives us clue number 3, which is reverence. Ruth was willing to move on from association with idolatry, her homeland. She made a decision to commit and to revere to the God of the universe. The Bible reads again in verse 16 of chapter 1. And Ruth said again, "Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God." Who is the faithful steward? We have some clues. Number 1, gratitude. Clue number 2, loyalty. Clue number 3, reverence. But even in that part of the story, there is still yet more clues. And after being willing to give up everything, family, self-association with idol worship, her homeland, there now is provision now for a 4th clue. And that clue is namely sacrifice. While being loyal again, Ruth had to sacrifice everything about herself. Let's again go back to 1 verse 16. I'll read just repeat it, raise and repeat. She said again, "I will go where thou goest. I will lodge where thou lodgest. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God be my God." Ruth was willing to sacrifice everything. Again, who is the faithful steward? Here are clues again. Clue number 1, gratitude. Clue 2, loyalty. Clue 3, reverence. Clue 4, sacrifice. What then is our next clue? It's contentment. Number 5. But before we go any further, we have to introduce a 3rd character in our story. His name is Boaz. And in Ruth chapter 2, verse 1 and verse 4, the Bible reads, "And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, saying, The Lord bless thee." Now the Greek word, the root word obviously for kinsman is goel, which means to what? Which means to redeem. And the goel among the Hebrews was the nearest male blood relative alive to someone who had obviously been deceased. And Boaz was a kinsman to Elimelech. Now for contentment though, here's how it's defined. An action of being satisfied. A process of being satisfied. Satisfaction in general. But now let's go back to our story. Remember, Ruth's sacrifice as our last clue. Family, homeland, idolatry, and self. But in chapter 2 now, we pick it up. Going back to verse 1, and the Bible reads, "And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, family of Elimelech, his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go into the field, and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went, and came, and gleaned in the field after the reapers," stressing the word after. "And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech." Verse 7, "And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." So Ruth, after giving up the opportunity to be with her maternal mother, to go back home to Moab, to be around again forms of idolatry, was now content with reaping the scraps from the field. Who is the faithful steward? Clue number one, or clue is gratitude. Clue two, loyalty. Clue three, reverence. Clue four, sacrifice. Clue five, contentment. And when one is content, one naturally shows our next clue, humility. Clue number six. Humility is defined as freedom from pride or arrogance, the quality of being humble. And humble means not being proud or haughty, not arrogant or assertive, reflecting, expressing, or offered in a spirit of deference or submission. And as Ruth was picking through the scraps after the reapers had gone ahead of her, she was actually again in the field of Boaz. Let's pick up again in Ruth chapter 2, verse 3, where the Bible reads again. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. Her hap was to light on part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. But what happened during now what would be the first encounter between Ruth and Boaz? Let's start up now at verse number 5, actually. Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? And the servant that was over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the land of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and have continued even from the morning until now, that the tarried a little in the house. Then said Moab unto Ruth, Boaz unto Ruth, hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. And verse 19, then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing that I am a stranger? Ruth, taken aback by the kindness of a stranger, humbled herself, went on her knees as a thank you to Boaz. Question again, who is the faithful steward? Our clues again, gratitude, loyalty, reverence, sacrifice, contentment, humility. And even in that moment, there is yet another clue. devoted and painstaking at times work and application to accomplish a particular undertaking. Let's go back again to Ruth chapter 2. I'm going to read from verse 1 again a little bit to verse 14. I do apologize for some repeats. Just bear with me a little bit. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth. We know him again to be Boaz, verse 2. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto him, not said unto Naomi, let me now go into the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. And she went, and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light a part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was in the kindred of Elimelech. Verse 7, and she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. And here's the important part now. So she came and have continued, even from the morning until now, that she tarried only a little while in the house. Ruth, even while being content, worked diligently in the field, even picking up after what we call in that case scraps. Gave up everything, content picking up scraps, but she worked diligently in that field or in that realm as well. I ask the question again, who is the faithful steward? Clue number 1 again, there is gratitude. Clue 2, loyalty. Clue 3, reverence. Clue 4, sacrifice. Clue 5, contentment. Clue 6, humility. Clue 7, kindness. Clue 8, diligence. But then you ask, well, what is the next clue to who this faithful steward is? Number 9, obedience. And obedience, obviously, falls under to obey, which means to follow commands or the guidance of someone or something. And Ruth followed directives from Naomi. Let's go to chapter 3 of Ruth, reading from verse number 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, my daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well for thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself then, here are the directions, and anoint thee, and put on thy raiment unto thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in, and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, all thou sayest unto me, I will do. And she went down onto the floor and did according all that her mother-in-law had bade. Imagine today, for example, telling a lady to do this to a young man, and I can almost guarantee you they will look at you like you are absolutely crazy. But Ruth obeyed to the T exactly what Naomi has stated. Continuing verse 7. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly, uncovered his feet, and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and turned himself, and said, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thy handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thy handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. And he said, blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether rich, poor, or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. Ruth obeyed the words through Naomi. Ruth humbled herself, followed the counsel when it came to Boaz. And as a result, she was called blessed. She was also called a virtuous woman. The question again, who is the faithful steward? Our clues: gratitude. Number 2, loyalty. Number 3, reverence. Number 4, sacrifice. Number 5, contentment. Number 6, humility. Number 7, kindness. Number 8, diligence. Number 9, obedience. But even in verse 10 and 11, we see previous clues come to alive again. There is gratitude. Verse 10 again, and it reads, "And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than in the beginning." Boaz is now showing gratitude for what Ruth had done. And there's also, in verse 11, contentment/sacrifice. Verse 11 reads, "And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that is requires." Boaz was now willing to sacrifice himself for Ruth likewise as well. "For all the people knows that thou art a virtuous woman." Boaz is saying, you are what I thought you were. I did. You are that virtuous woman. I will now make a sacrifice on your behalf. And this leads us now to clue number 10, the clue called love. Boaz, after making a commitment and showing his willingness now to make a sacrifice, recognized, wait, but there could be a problem. Let's go to verse 12 of chapter 3. "And now it is true that I am the nearer kinsman, but, howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I." So there is someone closer to the kindred, if that makes sense, than Boaz himself. But Boaz does not let that problem, discourage him. Double downs again on his willingness to make the sacrifice. He was willing to humble himself in the event that the nearest kinsman may actually even decline his request. Verse 13, it reads, "Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of the kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth, lie down until the morning." But there is still more. By allowing Ruth to lay down to the morning, more clues to the past come back in again. Love, kindness. Going to again verse number 14. "And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor." Boaz discerned, out of an act of love, an act of kindness, to protect Ruth. Say that her actions should not be known. But there's still more clues from the past, because he does give her a token. Verse number 15. "Also he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her. And she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he to me, for he said to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law." Now after all this, Boaz approached the nearest kinsman the next day and fought for Ruth, knowing that there was a chance that the nearest kinsman might say what? Might say no. Ruth chapter 4, verse 1 and verse 2, picking up there. "Then went Boaz up to the gate, and sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake of came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside and sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of elders of the city and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. Verse 3, and he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it beside thee, and I after thee. And he said, the kinsman ahead of him, I will redeem it. But then it continues. In verse 5, Then said Boaz, What day thou buyest the field of the land of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth, the Moabite, and the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman then said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this is the matter of the former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning charging. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor. And this was the testimony of Israel. Verse number 8. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, Buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. The nearest kinsman said, I can't do it, but I'll now let you do it. Out of love, Boaz fought for Ruth, knowing that there was a chance that he may not what? Win her. But he ultimately did. And he paid a price for her. Ruth chapter 4, verse 9. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, Ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all of Elimelech's and all of Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up in the name of the dead upon his inheritance. Out of love, he paid the price for her, even though, again, she was a Moabite. Again, I ask the question, who is the faithful steward? Is it Naomi? Is it Ruth? Is it Boaz? Here are the clues again. Number 1, gratitude. Number 2, loyalty. Number 3, reverence. Number 4, sacrifice. Number 5, contentment. Number 6, humility. Number 7, kindness. Number 8, diligence. Number 9, obedience. Number 10, love. Who is the faithful steward? It is Naomi. It is Ruth. It is Boaz. And it can be you too as well. All you need to do is to live those clues faithfully that God has given to all of us at his time, his call, and his place. And you too can be that faithful steward as well. Amen.